Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Seventh Rule and Virtual Trek Con presents, Sirach, say it with me, the STLV Pre-Con
Con.
with Sirach Lofton, of course.
Hello.
My name is Ryan T. Husk, our very special guest right now, live all the way from Deep Space Nine, floating out in space, Lolita Fatjo.
Hello, everyone. So happy to be here. 2 weeks till the big event.
Yep.
Right?
Excited.
Oh,
yeah.
1 week for the people that go super early somehow.
Well, that's true. That's not me.
So everybody in the live chat, let us know if you can see us well, if you can hear us well. Please make sure you like this video. Please make sure you click that share button and send it out to all your pals or enemies, as long as they're cool. And make sure you subscribe to this channel. We are going to tell you all about the good stuff with regards to Lolita and STLV, and none of the bad stuff, probably.
Hopefully.
Yeah, all right. Well, let's just jump into it. First and foremost, Lolita, can you tell everybody how you first started working with or for Star Trek?
Oh, gosh. Everybody's heard this a million times, but I'll abbreviate it. Otherwise, it'll take the whole half hour. It was during the writer's strike of 1987, way before some of you were even born. There was a huge writer's strike shut down Hollywood for 6-7 months. And it happened to be between the first season of Next Generation and the second season of Next Generation. So I was an actress at the time, working like everybody else, and all of a sudden there's no work. So I signed up with a temporary agency, and they sent me to some sort of plant out in Culver City, and I sat for 8 hours a day on an old Selectric typewriter. It really wasn't that old at the time, because it's 1987. It's kind of fancy. And I was typing forms that had the blue page, the yellow page, the pink page. So I had all the different color whiteouts on my desk. That's how long it was.
Oh my God.
So anytime I would make a typo, it's like, God damn it. So I'd have to get out the yellow, the pink, the purple. So that went on for months. And as soon as the strike ended, the temp agent called me and said, what do you want to do? And I said, get me out of here, please. But I knew that it was going to take a while for all the production companies and studios and everything to get back up and running. Figure a couple weeks at that time. So I said, if you have any job for 1 or maybe even 2 days at Paramount Studios, I'd be interested, because I lived walking distance from Paramount at the time. So he called me back and he said, I actually have 3 jobs at Paramount starting tomorrow. They're all in the writing department, and they all need help typing scripts. Yeah. Okay. Well, I never typed a script, but I certainly was familiar with scripts. And one of the shows was Cheers. I remember that. The other one, I don't remember what it was, probably a pilot that never got picked up. And the other one was Star Trek: The Next Generation. And the reason that piqued my interest was because I had taken acting classes from Patrick Stewart when I was in college. And I was friends with Jonathan Frakes before he ever got on Star Trek. We were all in the same Hollywood softball league. So I asked the temp agent, what do I need to know to take that job at Star Trek? And he said, you need to know Microsoft Word. And I said, what's that? And he said, I don't really know either. This is how long ago this was. So I called my best friend at the time, who was working for a production company, Ralph Edwards Productions. And I said, John, do you know what Microsoft Word is? And he said, yes, we just got that installed on our computers a couple of weeks ago. Why don't you come over and do the tutorial? I'm thinking, okay, that seems easy enough. So I did that. I went over there that night and thought, well, okay, I'm just going to wing this job tomorrow. Don't know how to type a script, but I do know how to use a typewriter, because they were still using Selectric typewriters, no computers yet. So I got there in the morning, and for anybody that's ever been to Paramount on the tour, or you're familiar with the lot, the Hart Building, which is where Gene Roddenberry always had his offices, and all the writers were in the Hart Building. And it's a very old building from the original studio days. And it only had 4 stories. It only has 1 door in and 1 door out, no way to get in otherwise. So I remember it was a bright sunny day, because it must have been September, doesn't matter. I got there, I'm like all geared up. So I opened the door. Now, backtrack a little bit. I was not a Star Trek fan, by the way.
What?
Sorry, I grew up at a time where it was either Lost in Space or Star Trek in the 60s, right? I was a Lost in Space girl. So, but I knew what Star Trek was, obviously, especially because Patrick and Jonathan were on that Next Generation. I'd never seen it, but, and I knew who Gene Roddenberry was. So anyway, I opened the doors and I looked down this hallway, very narrow hallway, and there's 4 men, remember 80s, not many women around, 4 men standing outside of each of these offices. And I realized the first gentleman right there where I walked in was Gene Roddenberry. So I was like, you know, again, not a fan, but I knew who he was. But the gentleman on my left said, "Oh, thank God, you must be the Microsoft Word expert." Best acting job I ever did. 15 years later, I left. So that's how I got there. It's a crazy story. It just goes to show you that you never know where your life is going to take you. Situations change all the time. I mean, I thought God willing, I was going to be an actress for the rest of my life, but that didn't happen. I chose to stay there. I saw a lot of, I don't know whether it was potential or what, but I made a lot of friends there very quickly in the writing department. And I moved up, I was promoted very quickly. So I stayed. So
when did your name start to appear on the credits? Do you remember when
during
they?
the Next Generation, my friend Eric Stillwell, who was the script coordinator before I was, he moved on to work with Michael Piller and left. And so I became the script coordinator. So that was when my name first started appearing. And I believe it says pre-production coordinator, because there's no union, or there wasn't, for script coordinators. So the script supervisors union was worried that there would be some conflict. So it was pre-production coordinator. That was sometime during Next Gen, and then all through DS9 and all through Voyager. Yeah. So,
Wow. So now,
and by the way, I want to
Yeah.
add for the audience out there, Ralph Edwards Productions. I remember hearing that name before, and now I know it comes from the People's Court. That's where I've heard it before. So Ralph Edwards produced.
Wow.
Truth or Consequences. Again, this is before you guys were born.
Name that tune.
Consequences. Yeah, Ralph Edwards.
I can name that tune in one note.
Yeah.
So that's Ralph Edwards Productions. Just a little side note.
Old time Hollywood. Old time Hollywood.
Yeah, I see.
Yeah.
So now what you do is much different than what you did do in the past. You somehow, if people know who you are, they're thinking, wait, I thought this was the lady that represented like 99.9 of the Star Trek actors that I see at conventions. Where did this happen, and how and when?
Well, I can tell you how that happened very early on. Excuse me. And one of the reasons that I stayed at Star Trek early is I became friends with Eric Stillwell, and Eric is a huge Star Trek fan. And he took me to my first convention in 1987, down in Anaheim somewhere. And I was just blown away because I'd never been to anything like that, especially a sci-fi or Star Trek event. Just not in my blood. And I kind of liked it. So he ultimately hooked me up with Creation Entertainment, ironically. Again, this is in 1987, 88. And on the weekends, back in those days, Creation was doing 2 or 3 or even 4 conventions every weekend somewhere in the United States. And they were still in New York, based in New York. So I started working for them and selling t-shirts, their tables, back in those days. And we would go all over the country and be back to work Monday morning. And eventually what happened is I started to become a guest at the conventions instead of selling the t-shirts. I would talk about the writing department. And then Ron Moore and Brandon Braga and I started a writer's workshop that we then took all over the world back in the early 90s. Because Star Trek was the only show in Hollywood that accepted scripts from fans. If they wanted to send in a script, they could. So Ron and Brandon and I wanted to try to get out in the public and help people do that, help people know how to put a script together and blah, blah. So that's how that started. And during that time, it was at the beginning of Deep Space Nine. A lot of the actors, their agents, their theatrical agents, didn't want to deal with conventions because there wasn't, quite honestly, a lot of money involved. They didn't know what to negotiate with people like Creation or other convention promoters. So I believe it was Renee. Sorry, I just got an email from Renee Echeverria. It was Renee Aubergenois and Armin, I believe, way back, came to me and said, listen, Lolita, obviously you know this convention world, you've been around it, you know these people. What would you say about representing us for these events? And that's how that started. And, you know, basically, it's still to this day, I've got almost the whole cast of DS9 as clients. Yeah. So I was doing that as well as working on the show until I left the show in 1999. So, and here we are, 2022. So still doing it.
I like the way you drop names because I want people to have some references. Eric Stillwell co-wrote Yesterday's Enterprise, right?
One of the best episodes ever.
Yes, with your friend Denise Crosby starring.
Right.
Yes.
So yeah, I just wanted to highlight that for the fans out there.
Yeah,
because I know you drop names really quickly, like, oh, Renee just called me. Renee Echeverria just called me yesterday, and you know,
big deal.
It's so funny. I said Renee Echeverria because he was also obviously started. Renee has a great story. I'll quickly tell it. He was an actor living in New York, waiting tables, but was a huge Star Trek fan and also was thinking of dabbling in writing. So he sent in a spec script that I was referencing earlier that we would accept. And he wrote a script called The Offspring, which ultimately turned out to be one of the most popular episodes of TNG when we met Data's daughter, Lau. And so when Renee was, when he was writing that episode, we brought him out to meet with the staff. And he actually was there when Gene Roddenberry passed away. So Renee ended up staying in LA for an extra week because things kind of got slowed down and shut down when Gene died. So, and then Renee ended up on staff and moved to LA and of course has had a huge career. But so yeah, that's why I mentioned his name because I got an email from him out of the blue yesterday. So, and so Renee. So
here's something that I've noticed about you, and I'm sure many people have noticed about you. You obviously represent a ton of the actors. You're at these conventions. Obviously, you've got a lot to do when you're doing these conventions. There's this person has requests. The convention itself has requests for them. There's scheduling nightmares. Things are always, it just seems like you're going to rip your hair out at all times. Yet
that's why I have to dye it all the time.
Yet somehow, if anybody walks by you at a convention, you're smiling, you're laughing, even if you have to make a complaint about something, you do it kind of in a joking fashion, like, boy, it's freaking hot over here. It's still fun, you know? So is this a deliberate thing that you're doing where you're thinking, I always want to put up a happy, positive face for my clients, for the convention, for the fans?
Well, I think it's a little bit of everything. I mean, I think that's my natural personality. I'm a fixer. And I do call it the Star Trek smile because sometimes it's really hard to do that. But yeah, you want the last thing you want to do is make people more upset than they might already be. So I think the thing is you need to try to calm the situation down, or whoever is involved, whatever it happens to be, and then go scream behind the stage. And, you know, a lot of gray hair, and that's why it's red all the time. But yeah, I think it's a combination of all of that. And also a lot of acting, which is, you know, in my blood. So it's a combination of all that. But I hope that it looks like I'm having a good time.
It does.
It does. I want to commend you too, also, Lolita, for how well you handle, you know, issues and situations that arise, your problem solving skills, because, you know, as of late, we've had a lot of new challenges, especially when it comes to STLV the last few years. We dealt with the whole pandemic and COVID and the regulations and trying to make sure that we were still able to put on an event and people felt safe.
Right.
And then we were
which-
going
which-
over to Bally's last year, which is a
then we
new
switched
venue.
venues.
Yeah.
Yeah, like
That
for
was
one time
stressful.
only, a one-off switch. And so you're always having to think on the fly, deal with issues on the fly, and work with the promoters as well as the actors to make sure that everybody feels like a level of, order, so that we have structure and people are on agreeable terms. What are some of those same kind of challenges you're having to deal with this time, and how are you smoothing those over so that people can have a great convention?
Well, I think you're probably referring to the actor strike that just
Yeah,
days ago.
that's a big part of it. A little
And
bit,
a
yeah.
writer's strike.
The
Well,
writer's
I mean,
strike's
And I
going
hear
on.
the locusts are back this year. I'm kind of rooting for
Yeah.
that, though. I like
Yeah.
that. That was fun.
The writer's strike wasn't a problem with the convention, because that's a whole other beast. But this
Right.
actor strike at first seemed to maybe going to affect the convention. And everybody was up in arms, and I understand that. And, people knee-jerk react sometimes and say things they shouldn't, and that's human nature. But I will say that ever since this started Thursday night, I have been on the phone, on the email, on, text messaging, everything, with the promoters, with the actors, with people that are in the know from SAG. And the show will go on. So please, please, please still come to Vegas this year. There may be a few changes, but there's been a few changes the last few years that,
Yeah.
Creation's not a licensed event anymore, but who cares? People didn't notice that. We were at Bally's last year. It was a challenge, but we still had a good time.
Mhm.
So the point is, please still come to Vegas. If you're having any thoughts about not, we're still going to be there and have a great time, as always.
Yeah. And that's a pretty official word from a SAG board member.
Yes.
This is not, there's a lot of information and, that could be incorrect or correct that always floats around in the first few days. But if you hone in on the actual experts, it kind of settles out pretty quickly. Right now, what we know is that everything's fine. Everything's good. Come to Vegas. Like you said, there will be changes, but there's always changes. People get
Absolutely.
sick. People get, canceled. People get added on.
And I also want to add that Creation is very good at being flexible to make sure that they on the fly make sure that they meet the talent's needs.
Yes.
They meet the guests' needs. They handled the whole pandemic pretty well, in my estimation. They put up plexiglass dividers. They had hand sanitizer everywhere. They really went over and beyond to make sure that everybody was following the rules that they laid down, and so that the actors felt comfortable and that all the guests felt comfortable. So I want to say that they've been doing a tremendous job of adjusting on the fly to, trying to make sure that they are not crossing any lines.
Absolutely. And I think this, we'll see that again in a couple of weeks. So it'll still be a lot of fun. So yes, again, I encourage everybody to please still come. No reason not to. Yeah.
We're going to be there. If
we
you don't go, you're not going to see us.
You don't have to tell me twice.
Yeah.
It's my birthday special,
Yay.
how I celebrate my birthday.
Sirach's birthday,
special thing.
Dr. Anne Marie Siegel's birthday. We have Jenny R. Johnson's birthday. Shout out to all of them. It's a big birthday week. Lolita, here's something I was thinking about recently. It's a slight segue. It's a big segue, actually. But I've noticed you know how to live. When you go, you go on a cruise because it's work.
It's work.
You go on a cruise in the Mediterranean because it's work. You go out to Germany because it's work. That's a pretty cool gig you've got for you. Have you ever thought like, darn, I got to go on a cruise again? Or is that always like a perk?
I think, and Sirach would agree with me. This Star Trek thing is the gift that keeps on giving. We are so blessed to have landed on the show that is 57 years old now. I'm sorry, I'm a fan of Law and Order 23 years in. Are they having cruises? No. Are they having conventions? No. All the shows that I love that have long lives, they're not doing what we're doing. So I love it. We've been blessed to go all over the world, literally. Cruises. I'm not trying to toot my own horn here, but I've been to Italy over 40 times. And that's because of Star Trek. That's not because of me. I'm not a multimillionaire by any means. This is all done because of Star Trek, affording me and taking me to these places.
Well,
And
that question segues me, Lolita, to a question that one of the fans brought up to me on the last cruise. And we were just, shooting the shit, just having a nice little powwow. And his question was, hey, do you think, and this would apply to you, do you think William Shatner actually takes a vacation since he's always just flying around making appearances? And I guess that would be the same question to have for you. Do you take vacations at all, or are you always on a vacation? Is it?
It's an interesting question. I sometimes try to make a vacation after some of these things, like stay in Italy or stay up on the cruise or do something different. But it is work, it is a lot of work. It's fun. And so, I do take vacations, but I have to say, most of what I've seen is through Star Trek, most of the world that I've seen through Star Trek. And sometimes now it's like flying is such a hassle and the airports are nasty. It's like, oh, I really don't want to go, but we do it because that's where we need to be. So,
hey, here's something. I was going to ask you your favorite city you've ever seen, but you probably answered that a million times.
Actually, I haven't.
Oh, well, let's hear it then, because we also want to mention that Ed Milner said Lolita is a great panel moderator. We got a lot of comments in the live chat. If any of you, if you guys have quick questions for Lolita, put them in the live chat right now while she tells us her favorite city. Is it Milan?
No, I have a lot of favorite cities that I've gone to because of Star Trek. London is one of them, and I've been so many times. Really? Rome, again, is another one. But I've also been to so many tiny places. I did a Star Trek cruise called Cruise Trek. It's not Star Trek, the official cruise, last August. And we went to Romania, we went to Croatia. It was amazing just to see these places I would never have thought I would go to, if it weren't from Star Trek. So, and I have
where does that cruise leave from?
That one went from Bucharest to Budapest.
Wow.
Because it makes me think so there's Star Trek fans all over the world.
All over the world.
That's crazy. Yeah.
Except for the Dutch. Just kidding.
I've been to the Netherlands a few times for convention.
Me too.
Yeah, that's fun. But I have to say, my favorite place in the United States for a convention is San Francisco, because I'm a little biased anyway. But we used to do a lot of Star Trek conventions in San Francisco that were really a lot of fun. So that's where I live.
It is home of the Academy, right?
Yes, that's right. Home of Starfleet Academy.
Robert Kaiser, you may know Robert Kaiser out from Austria. Can you believe it's 3:30 in the morning right now and he's sitting here talking to us? Yeah. He says Lolita is great and I really love what she does. She definitely should afford vacation at some point at some of those locations. So
I try.
And we also see Sherry, Def Kiss, Lisa Mackey, who's out in Montreal. I was hoping you would mention Montreal as a nice place. We have Heather Ray, Chuck A, Shag 840, Allison, Leech Hyde. We got Don, Ranger Power. We have Draco Rex. That's Marina, our good buddy. Chris Marshall. Tons of people. Dr. Anne Marie. We've got Melissa Longo, who you may know as well. I bet you anything. She literally said, hi, back to the screen, because she'll definitely say it in person soon. So we only have about a minute or two left. Lolita, it's going to be a lot of fun in a couple of weeks. This is what we look forward to every year. Sirach celebrates his birthday there every year. I remember.
And we're excited to be back at the Rio, man.
Yes.
I never thought I'd miss the Rio this much, but I'm actually looking forward to getting back at the Rio.
That's for Rio, dude.
Yeah. Here's the thing. That last year at Bally's, it was so nice to have those choices of all those restaurants and bars between Paris and Bally's. The convention center wasn't good for us. It's too small. So yes, I'm glad to be back at the Rio Convention Center, but not for the rest.
We'll order in.
That's right. I was just going to say,
I do. I like the masquerade bar. I like the familiarity of the
That's
halls
true.
where all the events happen. It's like
Yeah.
you know where everything is. It's kind of
I
like
agree.
you don't have to think too much. So I can
And you can
spend
say,
more
I'll
time
meet you
being
at some-
wasted.
Yeah, you can
Yes.
say, exactly. We'll have a drink there and you know where that is. Yeah.
Exactly.
It's true. It's just more familiar. But I will give one final thought about Bally's. Somehow, when I look back at it, it's a fond memory because there was something
It's fun.
fun and exciting
yeah.
about
Oh yeah.
this confusing new place. And there's some good places to visit and some bad places to visit. And there's the Paris.
It was.
And it was kind of an adventure. When you look back at it, you're like, that was, I look at
It
I
was.
look back
It
at
should have been
fondness.
called Mirror Universe Con. It was like the. It was the mirror universe of creation.
Well, it
And
also
actually-
goes to show you, here's the thing. Star Trek is a family. I go on and on about this all the time. But we all survived COVID. We all survived Bally's. We'll all survive this strike.
We survived Bally's. We're survivors.
Yeah, the fun will continue. So it's all good.
Before we go, I just realized, Lolita, you and I are both wearing To the Journey shirts.
I know,
Does
but
that
you can't
mean-
see it. There.
Does that mean
Oh,
that the Voyager documentary will have a presence there besides yourself and myself?
Yes, and I'm really quick. I know we have to go, but I also wanted to make sure that everybody knows, and I'm not sure it's on the website yet, but Ryan and myself and Joe Kornbrot and Dave Zappone are doing a workshop in Vegas, which is a separate paid event that is about making documentaries. And so I encourage any of you who are watching and are interested at all about how these documentaries are put together to please come join us. We're going to do it Friday afternoon, I believe, from 1 to 3. It will be on the creation website if it's not already on there. And
Great.
yes,
Wow.
a sneak peek of the Voyager doc, and I think we will have a panel as well on Sunday.
Huge presence and a table.
And a table. Please come visit us. Hopefully the table is going to be right where Sirach and all my other wonderful actors are sitting. So please come say hello to all of
I'll
us.
be in and out of that table too.
Yes. Yeah.
So,
that's gonna be a
so
lot
if
of-
anybody has any Voyager documentary questions or whatever, come by. They'll probably pass you along to me or maybe Joe, depending on what the question is. We'll also have some things to sell, if anybody's interested in some awesome Star Trek stuff, maybe you are. But we do have to run, Lolita. It's always so much fun talking with you in person or on Zoom.
Thank you so much.
Sirach and I
Thank you,
love you.
Lolita.
Everybody
Yes,
in the
we
live
do.
chat loves you too.
All right.
So,
See you guys.
everybody
all of
at
you in
home-
2 weeks.
Everybody at home, we're going to put this the video link for the next video right now. Make sure you go to that next video. It is John Champion. Sirach and I interview John Champion of Mission Log and Roddenberry Entertainment and the Roddenberry secondary stage or tertiary stage. It's a lot of fun. Go jump on that right now. It's starting right now. Lolita, we
Thank you,
freaking
guys.
love you. I'm going to give you the biggest hug in 2
Did I
weeks.
do that right?
No.
Yes.
No.
That's
It's
close
okay.
enough.
I try.
Close enough.
It's only been 37 years of my life. So,
Yeah.
all right. Love you guys. Bye-bye.
Stay on 1 second. We're going to close this stream. See you, everybody. We'll see you on the next video that's starting right now. Actually, let me put in the live chat one more time. There you go. See ya. All right.